This isn't the story of a woman broken by betrayal. It's the story of a woman who rose from it, who stood in the ashes of a wedding that never was, and found something far more sacred than vows. Truth, it's the story of a family knot. Born of blood, but built through trust, through laughter, through healing. A girl who needed a mother. A man who forgot how to smile. And a woman who walked in with nothing but her name, gave them everything. This isn't a love story that begins with sparks and ends with perfection. It's a story of love that grows quietly, patiently through ordinary days, tearful nights, and second chances. A love that isn't grand, isn't flawless. But it's real, and sometimes that's the only kind that lasts. Emma Collins stood at the altar, her hands trembling as they clutched a bouquet of white peonies. Her silk wedding dress fit like a dream one she'd spent 2 years imagining. But now, under the tall arches of St. Michael's Cathedral, that dream was unraveling stitch by stitch. Stained glass light splashed across her gown, casting colorful reflections over the sea of silent guests. Nearly 200 people filled the Hughes family, friends, colleagues. They'd come expecting to witness a beautiful celebration of love. Instead, they sat frozen, their faces painted with disbelief, discomfort, and growing sympathy. Across from her, James Blackwood, the man she thought would be her husband, looked like he wanted to disappear. "I can't do this." "Emma," he said just loud enough for the entire church to hear. The words echoed in the hushed cathedral, bouncing off the marble floors and carved wooden beams. They hit Emma like thunder. She blinked, her breath caught. "What?" she whispered, her voice cracking. James looked away, his jaw clenched. "I'm sorry, I can't." That was it. No explanation, no tears, just a man walking away. From a promise in front of everyone? It took Emma a few seconds to realize her knees had nearly buckled beneath her. But she didn't fall. She didn't cry. Not yet. She turned her head slightly and caught the expression of Victoria Blackwood James's. Mother in the front row, calm, poised, satisfied. Emma's heart sank deeper. She knew now. This wasn't just cold feet. This had been planned. Only half an hour ago, in the bridal suite, Victoria had walked in unannounced. Her navy blue suit pristine, her silver hair styled with perfection. She moved like someone who owned every room. She entered in expected obedience from all inside it. "Emma, dear," she had said with a voice dipped in honey, but lined with steel. "We need to talk." Emma had paused in front of the mirror, already anxious, but still smiling. Of course, Mrs. Blackwood. Everything all right? Victoria hadn't smiled, not truly. Instead, she pulled out a manila folder and laid it on the vanity. "This depends on you." Inside, Emma's life dissected. Bank statements, student loan balances, photo of her tiny apartment, her 10-year-old Honda. "Do you really believe?" Victoria said coolly that this qualifies you to join the Blackwood family. Emma's throat tightened. "I work hard. I'm a pediatric nurse. I help children." "How noble," Victoria replied with a smirk. "But James is headed for a political career. He needs someone who will elevate him, not someone who will drag him into mediocrity." Then, as casually as discussing lunch plans, Victoria had pulled out a check. $50,000. Neat, unassuming. "This is to help you start fresh. You can pay your debts, move somewhere new, and perhaps meet someone more." Appropriate. Emma had stared at it. "You want me to leave, James?" "I want you to recognize reality," Victoria had said, folding her hands. "You walk away. Tell James it was your idea. Save face. If you refuse..." Her smile turned cruel. "Well, it would be a shame if references got withdrawn. If rumors spread, a nurse's career can be fragile." Emma had refused. In that moment she had clung to her belief that James loved her. He would stand up to his mother. That their love was worth the storm. But now here he wasn't standing beside her. He was walking away. Emma took a long breath and looked down at the bouquet in her hands. Slowly, she bent and placed it gently at the base of the altar. Then, with deliberate calm, she turned to the crowd. Their eyes locked on her, some wide with pity, some unsure, some already whispering. The wedding, she said, voice strong and unwavering, is cancelled. A wave of gasps passed through the congregation. Jessica, her best friend and maid of honor, stood at the edge of the altar, stunned into silence. Emma walked down the aisle alone. No one rose, no music played. Only the echo of her footsteps against the marble floor. She passed the first pew. Victoria sat there with a smug little tilt of her chin. Emma didn't look at her. Outside, the sky had darkened, clouds like her. Emotions were heavy and ready to burst. As she stepped into the autumn air, rain began to fall. At first a drizzle, then a downpour. Within minutes, her hair was soaked. Her dress clung to her like a weight. Her mascara ran in streaks down her cheeks. She stood under the massive stone steps of the cathedral, frozen. Her apartment lease had expired last week. Her belongings had already been moved into James's penthouse. She had no home, no backup plan. Just a broken heart in a wet, expensive dress. Jessica appeared at her side, holding an umbrella over them both. Emma, she whispered, "Come home with me, please. We'll sort this out together." Emma shook her head, rainwater dripping from her chin. "I need to think. Just let me breathe." Jessica hesitated. "Promise me you'll call. You shouldn't be alone." "I'll be okay," Emma lied. She wasn't okay, and as she stepped down to the sidewalk, the truth hit her. She had nowhere to go. The cab she tried to hail ignored her. Another one sped by. She was standing on a city street, drenched, abandoned, and completely lost. And that's when a black car pulled up. The window rolled down, and everything changed. The rain poured harder as Emma stood on the curb, shivering in her soaked gown. She could barely see through the curtain of water. But the hum of an approaching engine brought her attention to the sleek black car gliding toward her. It stopped. At the curb, the window rolled down with a soft mechanical buzz. Inside was a man, dark hair dampened by the storm, deep brown eyes filled with concern. He looked to be in his late 30s, wearing a rain-spotted suit jacket, loosened tie, and an expression that wasn't pity. Just awareness. Quiet, steady awareness. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice cutting through the downpour. Emma nearly laughed. She must have looked like something out of a tragic comedy, Abandoned Bride, then soaking wet, mascara streaked, standing in the rain like a movie cliché. "Do I look okay?" She snapped, not meaning to sound bitter, but unable to help it. The man didn't flinch. He tilted his head thoughtfully. "You look like you're having the worst day of your life. Would you like a ride somewhere dry?" Emma blinked, caught off guard by the calm sincerity in his voice. There was no sleaze, no inappropriate smirk, just quiet concern. Still, every instinct in her warned against getting into a stranger's car, but the cathedral loomed behind her. The place where her life had just crumbled. The storm was getting worse, and she had nowhere to go. "I don't even know where I'm going," she murmured. "That's all right," he said. "Sometimes the best journeys start that way." Emma hesitated, and then she opened the door and climbed in. The interior was warm and smelled faintly of leather and cedar. The seats were soft, luxurious. She sank into them, her wet dress making a mess of everything, but the man didn't seem to care. He reached into the back seat, pulled out a jacket, and gently draped it over her shoulders. She flinched from the kindness. "Thank you," she said, barely audible. "I'm Alexander," he said simply, turning the heater up a little and pointing the vents toward her. "Emma." They didn't speak for a few blocks. The city outside blurred through rain-streaked windows. Emma stared at her lap, her fingers still shaking. The jacket too big but oddly comforting. She finally exhaled a long, shaky breath, I was supposed. "To get married today?" Alexander nodded slowly, I guessed. "He left me at the altar, in front of 200 people." Her voice cracked. "His mother bribed me to leave him. Said no. So he left me instead." Silence. Then, how much was the bribe? $50,000, she said. She offered it like it was a handshake. Just walk away and disappear. Alexander let out a low whistle, not in amusement, but disbelief. "That's a special kind of cruelty." Emma looked out the window, the rain matching the rhythm of her thoughts. She said I wasn't good enough for their family, that my student loans, my job as a nurse, my apartment, even my car made me, beneath them. And your ex-fiancé. Letter Emma nodded. He didn't even fight. Just stood there and apologized like he was handing back a dinner reservation. Another pause. I'm a pediatric nurse, she said suddenly. I work with sick kids. I've never cared about money. I don't have fancy clothes or a family name. I just, wanted someone to love me. When she finally glanced at Alexander, he was watching her with that same quiet intensity. His loss, he said simply. You don't even know me. I know you're someone who helps children. I know you walked away from a future that looked perfect on the outside because you refused to be bought. And I know you trusted a stranger to drive you away from a church instead of standing in the rain waiting to fall apart. Emma swallowed hard. His words warmed her, but she didn't know what to do with them. The car slowed in front of a small, boutique hotel. She hadn't even told him where to go. I figured a hotel was a good start, he said gently. Somewhere to rest. She nodded, reaching for the handle. Emma, he said before she could leave. She turned back. I know. This might sound strange, but I have a daughter, Olivia. She's 8, smart, stubborn, and grieving. She lost her mom 2 years ago, and she needs someone who understands how to help kids heal. Emma stared at him, unsure what he was saying. I could use someone like you, he said. It's not just for her medical needs, but her emotional ones. A nanny, yes, but more than that. Someone who sees her. Someone like you. Emma's brows lifted. You're offering me a job? A fresh start, he replied. Housing included, full benefits, no strings attached. She hesitated, her world tilting again in a new, surreal direction. You don't even know if I'm sane. He smiled slightly. I know, you're someone who deserves better than what happened today. And I know my daughter could use someone with your heart. Emma said nothing for a long moment, then took the card he offered. Alexander Sterling, CEO, Sterling Technologies, of course she'd heard the name. One of the biggest tech moguls in the country. But nothing about him in that car had felt arrogant or rehearsed. Just human. I'll think about it, she said. That's all I ask. And then she stepped out of the car and into a new beginning. The hotel lobby was quiet. It's a soft hum of instrumental music playing overhead as Emma stepped through the glass doors, still wearing her ruined wedding dress, now cloaked in Alexander Sterling's tailored jacket. The warmth hit her like a sigh. Behind her, the city rumbled on cars rushing past, rain still hammering the streets, pedestrians ducking beneath umbrellas. But in here it was still. Safe. Emma walked to the front desk, the young clerk doing a double take at the sight of her soaked dress. He opened his mouth to ask something, but then wisely chose silence and simply handed her a room key. She didn't remember much after that, only that she got into the elevator, watched the numbers climb, and stepped into a quiet room that smelled of clean sheets and lemon polish. She peeled off the wet gown, hung Alexander's jacket on the back of a chair, and stood for a long moment in silence. Then she cried. Not soft, graceful tears, but the kind of sobs that rack your whole body, that rip through your ribs and gut and lungs. She cried until she couldn't anymore, until there was nothing left but silence. And then she slept. 3 days passed. Emma applied for 7 jobs and heard back from none. It became clear very quickly that Victoria Blackwood's influence stretched far beyond the walls of her political family. Phone calls went unanswered. Interviews were abruptly canceled. Hospitals she had once interned at suddenly said they had no record of her. The fear Victoria had warned her about, how quickly a medical career could be undone, was becoming reality. By Day 4. Emma was staring at Alexander's business card again. Sterling Technologies. She had Googled him the night she arrived at the hotel. Tech magnate worth billions. But more than that, articles talked about his philanthropic work, his donation to children's hospitals, his push for ethical AI development. Pictures of him with his late wife Sophia and his daughter Olivia. He didn't just look successful, he looked human. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? She answered cautiously. Emma, It's Alexander Sterling. We met the other day. During the rain, Emma sat up, clutching the phone. Mr. Sterling, hello? Call me Alexander, he said warmly. I wanted to follow up. I understand if you're not interested, but I thought I should let you know. The nanny position includes private housing on the estate and full benefits. Housing. Emma blinked. That solved her most immediate problem. Could I meet Olivia first, before I make any decisions? Of course. Today, if you're free? She gets home from school at 3. The Sterling estate sat just outside the city, a gated property surrounded by old oak trees. Gardens blooming despite the late autumn air, and soft hills in the distance. Emma had expected cold marble floors, staff in uniforms, and vast empty halls. What she found instead was warmth, a home that felt lived in, comfortable, loved. Alexander met her at the door in dark jeans and a soft button-down shirt. No tie, no arrogance. Thank you for coming, he said, his smile sincere. Olivia's excited to meet you, though she's pretending she isn't. He led her through the house. Framed family photos lined the walls, Sophia's laugh, frozen in time in nearly all of them. Olivia as a toddler riding her dad's shoulders, sun-drenched family picnic. A mother-daughter tea party. She was beautiful, Emma said, stopping at one photo. She was everything, Alexander said quietly. She died in a car accident 2 years ago. Olivia was with her. Emma didn't ask more. Her instincts, as a pediatric nurse, told her everything she needed to know. Trauma, grief, resilience. They stepped into the living room where an 8-year-old girl sat curled on a couch. Book in hand, a small stuffed fox beside her. Olivia Alexander said gently, "This is Miss Emma." Olivia looked up with large, solemn eyes, her father's eyes. Intelligent, cautious, guarded. "You're the lady from the wedding," she said bluntly. Emma blinked. How do you know about that?" Dad told me. He said someone was really mean to you and you were really brave. Most adults would have sidestepped that conversation. Olivia dove right in. Yes, Emma said honestly. Someone was very mean. I was very sad. But I'm starting to feel better. Olivia nodded, considering. Mom used to say that being sad is okay. It means you care about things. But you can't be sad forever. You have to let good people in. Emma felt her throat tighten. Your mom sounds very wise. She was, Olivia said. She also said you can tell when someone's fake, especially by their eyes. She stared at Emma for a long beat. Then, you don't have fake eyes. Emma smiled softly. Thank you. Are you a good person? I try to be. Olivia looked at her dad. I think I like her. Alexander's eyebrows lifted in surprise. That fast? She's not trying too hard? That means she's real. Emma laughed for the first time in days. A small, startled sound. It felt good. Would you like to see my room? Olivia asked, already walking away. Emma followed her up the stairs, heart still pounding from the whirlwind of the last few days. But something was different now. Not easier, but possible. Olivia Sterling's room was nothing like Emma had expected. It wasn't stuffed with toys or dripping with excess. Instead, it was a perfect blend of warmth and intellect. Bookshelves lined one wall. Art supplies sat organized on a low desk. Beneath the window, and an aquarium bubbled softly in the corner. A constellation projector painted tiny stars on the ceiling above the bed. This was Mom's favorite room, Olivia said, as she climbed onto her bed, hugging a fox-shaped pillow. She said it had the best light for reading. Emma walked in slowly, taking it all in. There were touches of Olivia's mother everywhere, a framed photograph of them laughing over a book, a pressed flower in a glass frame, a handwritten note, pinned to a corkboard that read, "You are loved. Always." She looks like a wonderful mom, Emma said, stopping at the photo. She was, Olivia replied. But most of the ladies' dad brings hearsay that they just say it to make me feel better. Emma turned. Could you tell they didn't mean it? Olivia nodded, their eyes. They were too polished. Emma sat down on the edge of the bed, careful not to get too close. What about me? Olivia stared for a moment. Your eyes look like you miss someone too. So, maybe you understand. Emma did understand. No, she hadn't lost a mother, not to death. but she had lost a life, a love, and the belief that she was enough. "You're right, I do miss someone." "Who?" Emma hesitated. "Someone I thought loved me. He decided I wasn't good enough." Olivia frowned, her little brow furrowed. "That's stupid." Emma blinked, then smiled. "Anyone can see you're good enough," Olivia continued, indignation rising in her voice. "You help kids, you're brave, and you didn't take that mean lady's money." "That too?" Emma asked, surprised. "Dad didn't tell me? Heard him on the phone?" "He said you walked away from everything with your dignity. He liked that." Emma sat a little straighter. "Do you like working with kids?" Olivia asked, switching gears as quickly as only a child could. "I do, especially the scared ones. I like helping them feel safe." "Mom said truth is better than pretending," Olivia said. "Even when it's hard." "I agree." Little girl's eyes studied her again. "When Mom was in the hospital, some nurses talked to me like I was dumb, but the nice ones looked me in the eye and explained everything." Emma's chest tightened. "What would you want me to do if I worked here?" "Talk to me like I'm not dumb," Olivia said. "And don't pretend to like me. Just be real." Emma nodded. "Deal." Olivia smiled, small but genuine. Then she hopped off the bed and reached under it, pulling out a shoebox. Inside were photos, drawings, and seashells. "I like the ocean," she said. "Right now I'm learning about marine biology. Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts?" "Did," Emma said. "And their blood is blue." Olivia grinned. "Cool, right? Want to study dolphins someday." For the next half hour, Olivia gave Emma a full tour of her books, sketches, and shell collection. She even showed her a journal she was writing titled Olivia's Book of Science and Secrets. When Alexander called them down for dinner, Olivia didn't hesitate to grab Emma's hand. "Dad made chicken stir-fry," she said. "He's terrible at it, but it's tradition on Fridays." Emma chuckled. "Traditions are important. Yeah, even the silly ones." Downstairs, the dining room was cozy and filled with the warm scent of soy sauce and garlic. Emma had expected silence, awkwardness, but dinner was full of conversation, laughter, and Olivia correcting her dad's chopstick technique. Alexander watched them both, his eyes lighting up every time Olivia smiled. It was the first time in a long time Emma had felt ... present. "Thank you for coming," Alexander said as they cleared the table. "Thank you for inviting me. Would you like to see the cottage?" He led her outside through the garden path to a small guest house tucked behind the main estate. It had a wraparound porch, flower beds, and tall windows that looked out onto a private garden inside. It was fully furnished, cozy, and filled with natural light. A small fireplace, a reading nook, and a bedroom with soft linens made it feel like a place to rest, not just live. Emma turned slowly. "Taking it in, this would be your space," Alexander said. "If you take the job." Emma turned to him, her voice low. "I need to be honest. Not in a place for anything ... romantic. I've been through a lot, and I wouldn't want there to be misunderstandings." Alexander nodded. "No offense taken. I appreciate your honesty. And I feel the same. I loved my wife deeply. I'm not looking for anything beyond help for Olivia. She needs someone who doesn't treat her like a project. She needs patience, respect." Emma exhaled. "Then yes, I'll take the job." Alexander smiled, warm and real. "Welcome to the family, Emma." She looked around the cottage again, her new home, and for the first time since the cathedral, she felt like she might truly belong somewhere. Emma moved into the guest cottage the following morning with nothing but a single suitcase, Alexander's borrowed jacket, and a cautiously beating heart. For months, she'd imagined unpacking boxes in a penthouse apartment, building a life with a man who had promised her forever. Instead, she was here on a quiet estate nestled among blooming gardens and bird calls, with a new job, new home, and a little girl who had already begun to soften her heart. The cottage was cozy and perfect. In its simplicity, soft gray walls, shelves full of books, windows that bathed every room in morning light. It didn't feel like a temporary stop. It felt like the beginning of something. Shortly after breakfast, there was a knock on her door. Emma opened it too. Find Olivia holding a plate of chocolate chip cookies and wearing an oversized hoodie with STEM Club printed across the front. "Mrs. Rodriguez made these," Olivia said matter-of-factly. "She's our housekeeper and the best cook in the world. She wanted you to feel welcome." Emma smiled and took the plate. "That's very kind of her." "And of you?" Olivia shrugged. "Do you want help unpacking?" "I'm good at organizing." "Stuff." Emma hesitated, then stepped aside. "I could definitely use a professional." For the next 2 hours, they arranged books on the shelves by genre, folded Emma's clothes into the dresser, and debated the best place for her framed. A photograph of her parents. Olivia offered suggestions with the seriousness of an interior designer and the passion of a child who loved order. She insisted the armchair be angled slightly to face the window, so the sunlight falls right on your lap while you read. Emma took every suggestion. As they worked, Olivia talked about school, about her favorite teacher, about marine animals, and her plan to someday build an underwater research station. "And you?" Olivia asked suddenly. "What did you want to be when you were little?" Emma looked up from folding sweaters. "A ballerina. For about a week. Then a vet. Then I saw a nurse help a little boy at my cousin's school who had a seizure. She stayed calm, knew what to do. After that, I never wanted to be anything else." Olivia nodded like she understood. "Helping people is a good reason." "Yeah," Emma said softly. "It is." Later that evening, Alexander returned from work to find Emma and Olivia in the main kitchen, sleeves rolled up, elbow deep in cookie dough. They both looked up at the same time, Olivia grinning, Emma trying to suppress a laugh as flour smudged her cheek. "Well, this looks like serious science," Alexander said, setting his briefcase down. "Very serious," Olivia said. "We're testing the molecular integrity of butter versus margarine in high-heat environments." Emma snorted. "She means we're baking." Alexander looked between the two of them and felt something in his chest easy, something that had been tight and heavy since the day Sophia died. For the first time in months, Olivia's eyes were lit with genuine joy. Her walls lowered, her laughter unguarded. They sat down to dinner, chicken with roasted vegetables, and of course, cookies for dessert. Conversation flowed easily. Olivia chatted about school projects while Emma chimed in with stories from the hospital. Alexander listened, occasionally adding details, but mostly watching his daughter thrive under the glow of something new, something healing. After dinner, Olivia ran upstairs to grab a book she wanted to show Emma. "She's changed," Alexander said quietly. "Already." Emma glanced toward the stairs. "Oh, she's incredibly bright and thoughtful. She just needs someone to treat her like she's more than a child." "You're good with her," he said. Emma hesitated. "I think I was meant to meet her." Alexander gave a small nod. "I think she was meant to meet you." There was a beat of silence. A comfort in it, not romance. Not yet, just understanding. That night, as Emma lay in bed in the guest cottage, she listened to the wind. Rustled the garden outside her window. The room smelled faintly of lavender and vanilla, curtains fluttering gently in the breeze. She thought of Olivia's laugh at dinner. Alexander's quiet smile, the moment Olivia had grabbed her hand on the way back from the kitchen. 3 days ago, she had been left at the altar, shamed, broken. Now she was here, and for the first time since that day, Emma allowed herself to really believe, that maybe Victoria Blackwood had been wrong. Maybe she wasn't inadequate or beneath anyone. Maybe she had simply been meant for something different, something better, as her eyes drifted closed. She thought of the question Olivia had asked that afternoon. What did you want to be when you were little? Right now, all Emma wanted was to be someone who made this house feel like a home again, and maybe, just maybe, she already was. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm, okay? Emma hadn't realized she'd been craving. Mornings began with Olivia knocking lightly on her cottage door, sometimes already dressed for school, sometimes still holding her toothbrush. They'd eat toast or fruit together on the porch, often discussing sea turtles or gravity or the ethical treatment of orcas in captivity. Olivia's mind raced with questions, and Emma welcomed every single one. Alexander typically joined them at the main house for breakfast, coffee in hand, his shirt sleeves always rolled to the elbow. He wasn't the distant billionaire Emma had feared he might be. He was hands-on, warm, a single father who clearly prioritized his daughter. Above everything, Emma admired him for that. Quietly, she told herself not to think about the way he looked at Olivia with so much tenderness, or how his eyes sometimes lingered on her not with romantic intent, but with the kind of appreciation that made Emma feel seen in ways she hadn't felt in years. By day, she picked Olivia up from school, helped her with homework, and listened as the little girl vented about playground drama and science club debates. Some days were bright, full of laughter and chatter, but others were darker, like the day Olivia came home and found an old scarf of her mother's tucked into a closet drawer. Emma found her sitting silently on the kitchen floor, a scarf wrapped around her knees. She used to wear it when it got windy, Olivia whispered. It still smells like her. Emma knelt beside her, saying nothing, just sitting, holding space. When Olivia finally looked up, her eyes wet but steady, she asked softly, "Do you ever forget how someone's voice sounded?" Emma nodded. "Sometimes, but you never forget how they made you feel." Olivia leaned against her shoulder and stayed there for a long time. That night, Alexander came to Emma's door after Olivia had gone to bed. "I wanted to thank you," he said, holding 2 mugs of tea, "for what you said to her earlier." "That she told me." Emma accepted the tea and sat with him on the porch steps, the stars stretching wide above them. "She's grieving," she said, "but she's also healing." "She's smiling again," Alexander said. "That's new." "She's also bossy," Emma teased gently. "Today she tried to reorganize my closet by color and sleeve length. Once, turned my quarterly reports into a rainbow." They laughed quietly, and in that shared smile was something unspoken. It's not flirtation, not expectation, just gratitude. Understanding. "I don't think I realized how lonely it had been in this house," Alexander admitted, "until it wasn't." Emma nodded slowly. "Loneliness is quiet, till it isn't." He looked at her then, and she looked back, both of them resting in the stillness. Then Olivia's bedroom light flicked off, and Alexander stood. "Good night, Emma." "Good night, Alexander." And that was enough. Over the following month, Emma began to notice the small things, the way Alexander always made time to sit down for dinner, even on his busiest workdays. How Olivia would peek around the kitchen door to make sure Emma was staying for dessert. How laughter was slowly replacing silence. They were a family. In function, if not yet in name, Mrs. Rodriguez, the Sterling housekeeper, took to calling Emma Hija and insisted she'd learn her cookie recipe. Neighbors dropped by and were quickly charmed by Emma's warmth and Olivia's blunt honesty. Even the family dog Max, who had previously avoided anyone not named Sterling, curled up at Emma's feet whenever she read by the fireplace, and somewhere along the way, Emma stopped looking over her shoulder for the pain that once defined her. She stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. One Saturday morning, she and Olivia were in the garden, planting new lavender and tulip bulbs while Alexander prepped the grill. Olivia looked up and said suddenly, "Emma, do you think people are meant to find each other?" Emma wiped dirt from her cheek. "What do you mean? Like, not just by accident, but on purpose?" Emma thought for a moment. "Sometimes, yes. I think life puts people in our path when we need them most." Olivia nodded. "I think you were meant for us." Emma looked up, blinking quickly against the sun. "Me too," she whispered. Later that night, as Emma sat in her cottage watching the fire dance in the hearth, she reflected on those words. She had spent so long trying to mold herself into someone worthy of being chosen. By James. By his family. By the world. But here, she had simply shown up as herself, and it had been enough. For a girl who needed someone patient, for a man still grieving, for a family learning how to breathe again, and maybe, just maybe, for herself too. Emma stood in the Sterling kitchen, her hands dusted with flour, humming softly as Olivia leaned over a mixing bowl. Beating, eggs like her life depended on it. Gently, Emma coached with a smile, not like you're trying to summon a thunderstorm. "Channeling scientific precision," Olivia declared, her expression serious beneath her messy ponytail. "We remaking soufflés. It's serious business." Emma grinned. "My apologies, Chef Sterling." They both burst into laughter just as Alexander walked in, the mail in one hand and his laptop in the other. He paused, his eyes scanning the scene, his daughter in flour-smeared sleeves, Emma laughing freely in his kitchen, and, his shoulders visibly relaxed, he set the mail down. "Smells like chaos and vanilla," it's both Olivia said proudly. "And it'll collapse in 10 minutes if we don't bake it now." "I'm staying out of the way then," Alexander said, backing out with mock fear. "Hey, carry on." As he left the room, Emma's eyes lingered on him a moment longer than they should have. It was becoming harder to pretend the feelings weren't sudden. They had bloomed quietly in shared silences, in dinners with laughter, in the way Alexander always asked how her day had gone, even when his had been buried in conference calls and investor briefings. But Emma reminded herself daily, this wasn't about her. She was here for Olivia, and Alexander had made it clear. His heart was still with Sophia. It had to be enough. But cracks were beginning to show in that silence that evening. Alexander knocked on the door of Emma's cottage. She looked up from her book, surprised. Hey, he said. "Olivia's asleep," I thought. "Maybe you'd like a glass of wine?" She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Sure." They sat on the cottage porch, the garden bathed in moonlight, a bottle of red between them. The night was quiet, not awkward, just soft. "I wanted to say thank you," Alexander said. "Again. For everything." "You thank me a lot," Emma said with a gentle laugh. "You don't need to," he said, serious now. "Before you, Olivia hadn't opened up to anyone in nearly a year. She barely spoke to the last 3 nannies, refused to eat meals with them, wouldn't let them in her room." Emma looked down. "She's a remarkable kid. She just needed someone to see her." Alexander was quiet for a moment. "She told me something today. Said she thinks people are meant to find each other when they need it most." Emma's breath caught. "She said she thinks you were meant for us." It was the crack. Emma didn't respond right away. She sipped her wine, letting the words settle between them. Finally she said, "I don't know what I believe about fate, but I know I was lost when you found me." He looked at her, then truly looked. "You weren't lost. You were just searching for the right place to land." Emma held his gaze. "And did I?" His smile was soft. "I hope so." She turned away then, not because she was uncomfortable, because the emotions brimming beneath the surface were too close to spilling. "I should go," Alexander said, rising slowly. Emma followed him to the door. He paused there as if wanting to say more, as if torn. "Good night, Emma. Good night, Alexander." But something had shifted. Neither of them said it aloud, but they both felt it. The next day, Olivia burst into Emma's cottage with a backpack, a plan, and absolutely no regard for personal space. "Tomorrow is Saturday. We're going to the Science Museum," she announced. Emma raised an eyebrow. "We are?" "Yes," Olivia said. "Dad always takes me, and now you're part of the team." Emma laughed. "Is this a requirement?" "Non-negotiable," Olivia said. Emma saluted. "Understood, Commander." At the museum the next morning, Emma watched as Olivia ran ahead, weaving between exhibits, her voice echoing through the halls as she explained facts to other children's. Sometimes, even to the tour guide, Alexander leaned in, "Showing off for you." Emma looked at him, surprised. "Really? She wants you to know she's smart, that you matter." Emma swallowed hard. "She already matters to me." Alexander's gaze softened. "And you matter to her." They stood there for a moment, watching Olivia dart between tanks of jellyfish and 3D planetariums. Neither spoke. But the silence had changed. It was no longer a barrier. It was full of questions, full of what-ifs and possibilities that night. As Emma tucked Olivia into bed, the little girl yawned and whispered, "Emma, yeah, I'm glad you didn't marry that dumb man." Emma smiled softly. "Me too, because then you never would have found us." Emma brushed hair from her forehead. and I never would have found you. Outside the room, Alexander stood listening at the door, heart full. He didn't know where this was going, but he knew he didn't want it to end. Sunday morning dawned with golden light spilling over the Sterling estate. The garden glistened with dew, and birds chirped somewhere in the distance as Emma sipped her coffee on the porch of her cottage. She had woken up feeling ... lighter, like something was shifting inside her, coiling after being wound too tight for too long. A knock on her screen door pulled her from her thoughts. "Come in." "Olivia," she called without looking. Instead, Alexander stepped inside. "Sorry to disappoint," he said, holding a box in his hands. Emma smiled. "You could never disappoint." His eyes flickered with something warm, unspoken, and then he held out the box. "Thought you might want these?" Emma took it carefully and opened the lid. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Olivia as a toddler painting with Sophia. Sophia and Alexander in Italy, laughing under a sun-drenched sky. Birthday parties, Halloween costumes, a family in motion full of life. Emma looked up, startled. "Why are you giving me these?" Alexander shrugged softly. "Olivia wanted. You too have them," she said. "You should know her mother too." Emma blinked, touched beyond words. "She's beautiful," she said, her fingers brushing over Sophia's smiling face. "She was," Alexander replied. "But so are you. It's in a different way." Emma looked at him, startled. His eyes didn't waver. "You've brought light back into this house, Emma. Into both of us." She felt her chest tighten. "I was never trying to replace her. I know," he said. "And that's why you never could. But you've made your own space here, with Olivia, with me." Emma wasn't sure what to say. Her pulse thrummed in her ears. She wasn't sure where the line was anymore. Professionalism ended, and something else began. "I'm scared," she admitted quietly. Alexander tilted his head. "Of what?" "Of losing this. Of losing her. Of ruining something that finally feels ... right." He stepped closer. "Then let's not rush it. Let's be careful. But also honest." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay." They stood there for a moment, not touching, but close enough that it felt like the start of something new. Then Olivia burst through the door. "Dad." "Emma, I have something very important to say," she declared with the urgency of a world leader. They both turned. "I think you should marry each other." Silence. Emma's eyes went wide. Alexander coughed into his coffee. Olivia looked between them, completely unbothered. "I'm serious," she said. "You love each other. I can tell." "Emma," flushed Olivia. "It's okay if you're scared," the little girl continued. "Mom said that when good people love each other, they should be brave enough to say it." Alexander looked at his daughter, heart swelling with pride and awe. Then he turned to Emma. "Is there any truth to what our very observant daughter just said?" Emma met his gaze and saw the quiet hope there. She swallowed the lump in her throat. "Yes," she said softly. "I love both of you. I have for a while." Alexander stepped forward and took her hands. "I love you too, Emma. Since the night you stepped into that car like you had nothing left, but still held your head high." Olivia squealed and threw her arms around them both. "So you'll get married?" They laughed. "We'll talk about that," Alexander said, ruffling Olivia's hair. "But can I plan it? I promise it'll be perfect. Way better than that first one." Emma laughed, tears in her eyes. "You might be the only wedding planner I'd trust after last time." Olivia beamed. "Yes." Alexander looked at Emma, his expression serious. "Again, no pressure, no expectations. We'll take this one step at a time, but I mean every word I said." Emma nodded, her heart full. "So do I." They didn't kiss then. They didn't need to. In that moment, the truth had been enough. And it had started with a child who saw what they hadn't yet dared to say aloud. 1 year later, the Sterling estate was transformed. The garden where Olivia once collected butterflies and planted tulips, with Emma now bloomed with hundreds of white roses. Lilacs and twinkling lights strung overhead like constellations. A string quartet played softly beneath a vine-covered trellis. But there were no stiff champagne flutes, no designer guest lists, no calculated photo ops. This time, the wedding was exactly what Emma had always hoped. For simple, honest, and full of love, Emma stood at the edge of the garden path in a gown she had chosen herself, soft, flowing nothing like the heavy, traditional dress from the cathedral. Her hair was braided loosely with wildflowers woven through the strands. Her bouquet wasn't perfectly symmetrical. It didn't need to be. She wasn't trying to prove anything. This wasn't a performance, this was home. Jessica, now her matron, of honor, stood beside her, dabbing tears from her cheeks. "You ready?" Emma smiled. "I was born ready for this one." The music shifted. The guests, friends, neighbors, Olivia's teachers, hospital co-workers, and a few of Alexander's close colleagues rose to their feet, not for show, but because they knew this moment was earned. At the end of the aisle, Alexander waited in a navy suit, his tie tucked slightly askew, because Olivia had insisted on adjusting it herself. His eyes never left Emma's dots next to him. Olivia stood proudly in a soft lilac dress, her hands clasped, her expression glowing with pride. She had insisted on being maid of honor. "It's only fair," she had said. "This started with me, remember?" Mem stepped onto the garden path, her heart light. There was no fear this time, no hesitation, just joy. When she reached Alexander, he took her hands without a word, their fingers folding together like they had always belonged that way. The officiant kept it short, just as they'd asked. Then came the vows. Alexander went first. "Emma," he said, voice steady, "you walked into our lives on the worst day of yours, and somehow made it the beginning of something beautiful for all of us. You brought light into our home, laughter into our kitchen, and healing into our hearts. You taught Olivia and me that love doesn't always come in the form we expect, but it always arrives exactly when we need it. I promise to love you with honesty, with patience, and with deep gratitude for the rest of our days." Emma blinked through tears and took a deep breath. "Alexander," she began, her voice trembling only slightly, "you and Olivia found me when I thought I had nothing left to give. You showed me that I was never broken, just waiting for a place to belong. You gave me a family, not just in name, but in every way that matters. I promise to love you, not just in the perfect moments, but in the ordinary ones. The quiet breakfasts, the messy science experiments, the nights when everything is just us. You are my home. Both of you." As the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Olivia clapped the loudest. Instead of tossing rice, the guests tossed flower petals per Olivia's instructions. "Rice is boring," she'd said. "Petals are magic." Alexander and Emma kissed for the first time as husband and wife. Petals swirled around them, laughter echoed through the trees. The past stalled, its pain, rejection, and heartbreak melted away like mist in sunlight. Later that night, the garden twinkled with fairy lights as guests danced beneath the stars. Olivia stood beside her. New grandparents, Sama's parents, explaining the importance of marine biodiversity between bites of chocolate cake. Jessica pulled Emma aside. "I've never seen you this happy." Emma looked around, her smile soft. "It's not the kind of happiness I thought I'd have." "No?" Jessica asked. Emma shook her head. "It's better." Across the garden, Alexander caught her eye and raised his glass. She raised hers back, and in that moment, she understood what people meant by a love that chose you back, not because of pedigree or expectations, but because of truth, kindness, and showing up every day. 3 years later, the Sterling house was filled with new life. In the softly lit nursery, Emma sat in a rocking chair, gently cradling her 6-month-old son. David, his tiny chest rose and fell against her as he dozed, his fingers curled around a corner of her shirt. Across the room, Olivia, now 11 and still wise beyond her years, read aloud from a picture book about ocean adventures, her voice calm and steady. It was a quiet moment, the kind Emma once believed she'd never have. A moment built not from fairy tales, but from hard choices, second chances, and love that grew through healing. Outside the window, the garden was in full bloom. Spring had arrived early this year. Tulips and jasmine spilled across stone paths, and beyond the hedges, she could see Alexander in the distance, walking with a contractor and pointing toward the cottage, now being expanded to accommodate their growing family. "Mom," Olivia said, looking up from her book, "I'm really glad that mean lady made you run away from your first wedding." Emma laughed softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Why is that, sweetheart?" "Because if she hadn't," Olivia said, completely serious, "you never would have found us. And we never would have found you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "The good kind. The kind that come when you realize everything terrible that ever happened brought you exactly where you were supposed to be." She looked down at baby David and across the room at Olivia, her daughter, not by blood but by choice, by love. "Sometimes the worst things," Emma said, "lead to the best things." At that moment, the nursery door opened and Alexander appeared, holding a bouquet of freshly cut flowers from the garden. He froze in the doorway, taking in the sight of Emma rocking David, Olivia sitting cross-legged with a book in her lap, the room softly aglow with golden light. "What are my beautiful family discussing?" he asked. Olivia grinned. How Emma's terrible wedding day was actually the best thing that ever happened to all of us. Alexander smiled, setting the flowers on the dresser. "Smart girl. Gets that from her mother." "Both her mothers," Emma corrected gently. Glancing at the photo on the bookshelf, Sophia, Olivia, and Alexander smiling under the sun, forever part of the home they'd built together. Sophia's favorite flowers were still part of the garden. Olivia had made sure of it. They had never tried to erase her. Instead, Emma had taught Olivia how to honor her mother while still letting new love in. It was the most sacred promise she had ever made, to be a second mother without trying to replace the first. Alexander crossed the room and leaned down to kiss Emma's forehead, his hand gently resting on their son's back. "I still remember the day I saw you standing in the rain," he said. "You looked like a storm had just torn through your life, but you stood there anyway, unmoving, like a lighthouse." Emma smiled, "And you picked up a complete stranger in a wedding dress." "Best reckless decision I ever made," he whispered. Olivia rolled her eyes. You're both so mushy now." Emma laughed. "Get used to it." Alexander wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Olivia leaned in against them both. This was it, not the life Emma had once planned. Not the path she thought she'd walk, but it was perfect. Not because it was without pain, but because it had been built with truth and trust. Love that didn't come with conditions or expectations. Victoria Blackwood had once told her she wasn't suitable for their family. She had been right, Emma. Collins had never been meant to be a Blackwood. She had been meant to be a Sterling, a mother, a wife, a healer, a woman who helped mend a broken family knot with wealth or pedigree, but with patience, kindness, and a strength that never needed to shout to be heard. As the sun dipped beyond the hills and the shadows lengthened across the nursery floor, Emma leaned her head against Alexander's shoulder and closed her eyes. This was her happily ever after. Not the one she had read in books, but the one she had built. With 2 hands, an open heart, and a love that had waited for her to be ready. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. Inside, love filled every quiet space, and the storm that had once wrecked her life, it had simply cleared the path for something far more beautiful to begin.